Hey, this is Sugar Jones, and this is a conversation I am having with my daughter and my son separately because we can't get our schedules together to get us all three in one place. We all went to see Avengers Endgame last week at a preview and kept our mouths shut and waited until all of you guys saw, and apparently with the blockbuster results, everybody has seen the movie already, so we feel confident that we're not giving away too much. But just in case, if you have not yet seen Avengers Endgame, please do not listen to this audio recording as it is chock full of spoilers. We completely spoil it for you if you've not watched the movie. So anyway, on to the conversation with Sugar Jones and her two sugar babies. Thanks. That you said wasn't going to happen. I'm talking to my daughter right now, and I'll be talking to my son later. The three of us can't seem to get together, but anyway, okay, Avengers. So you just said right now that you felt like.
Okay, so I feel like they brought.
You were upset about some of the characters.
Yeah, I was very upset about some of the characters.
Okay, first let's talk about. All right, let's talk about Black Widow. Okay, and we've already said spoilers. We've warned everybody. These are major spoilers. This is only for people that have actually seen the movie, okay? So if you've seen the movie, then you can join in on the conversation. But if you haven't seen the movie, you need to stop this recording immediately, go back, watch the movie. If you haven't seen any of the movies, go back and watch the entire encyclopedia of Marvel, and then you can come back. Then you can watch Endgame, and then you can come back and listen to this if you still even care. All right. So the one thing I said was, what did I say? I said, as long as Black Widow doesn't die.
You said that?
I freaking said that. That was the first thing I said. I was like, as long as Black Widow. And who's the first one that freaking dies?
Right. So I think we all saw coming Tony Stark dying, and I think
Oh, shut up! You totally blew that one right away.
It's a freaking spoiler.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
I can't believe you said it right there.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
I'm going to have to bleep that part out. Okay, let's not talk about that first. First, let's just talk about Scarlett.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Scarlett Johansson.
Literally, let me finish. So everybody saw Iron Man and
dying.
Mom, this is a spoiler warning on it already.
I know.
It's fine. Okay.
Not everybody saw it, but it kind of felt like it. Okay,
definitely was expecting it.
So in Infinity War,
everybody was expecting Iron Man and Captain America to die because it's been 10 years of their characters and their contracts were up and blah blah blah. It kind of just all felt like everything was.
You look like you're gonna
coming
cry.
Up to an end. Stop. It felt like everything's been coming to an end. So everybody was expecting them to not continue their characters.
Right.
The one person that we kind of all stopped realizing was also gonna end was Black Widow,
and that was the one person I said I hope she doesn't. I didn't care if anybody else died,
but I don't think anybody else expected that to happen in any way. So with that, they really nobody could have spoiled that one.
I have a deep attachment to her just because I know, I feel like I know her, and you guys were just she has no personality, she has no this, she has no that.
So in the past few movies, they've kept her as this emotionless, the way that they present her character. And a lot of people will back me up on this.
I know, and you're saying this because I completely disagree with you.
Yeah, they present her as a very emotionless, just kick-ass person, which is not bad. It's just that she obviously has a lot more depth to her character that they haven't explored in the past.
I don't understand how you never saw the depth in the other movies.
I've seen how they try to allude to it.
They don't even allude to it. She's pretty much flat out saying, I wish I could have done these things, but I couldn't. And this is the quote-unquote monster that I was created to be.
Right. But
she felt like she was a monster, but the whole time she was trying to be this. Right. She was conflicted.
Okay, anyway, they added way more to her character in a more human way with her humor, which was more realistic than just snarky, witty comments.
Right.
And her grieving over everything that happened in Infinity War, they really did humanize her character more than they had in the past.
Okay, so let's go back to the grieving. So at the beginning of the movie, we're basically at the place where Infinity War ends and everybody's like, what the hell just happened? And then boom, the screen goes black, and then you just see the big, ugly, what the hell font was that? I don't even know what font that was.
It looked like kind of an old-timey looking.
It looked like
a newspaper.
Like a newspaper font. It just wasn't even, it was I don't know. It was Roman something. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of that font. But anyway, all you saw was, I don't know, something more dramatic.
Some nice big cursive.
No.
Yes.
Shut up. Papyrus. No. So anyway, I was just no, shut your pie hole. So I was just okay, no. it just black screen, and all you saw was 5 years later. And then hold on. But then you heard this audible gasp from the whole audience, and we all, like, you could hear everybody mumbling, 5 years? Like, we're like, what? We have to go forward 5 years? And then you see everybody, and everything is like, it's not even dystopian, it's just depressed. It's gray.
It all looks deserted.
Do you remember what I saw when they went over?
When they went over the City Field thing, and she just went, "Oh, baseball."
I was like, wait, baseball. I was like, baseball died? Like, that was the saddest thing to me. That like, how bad did the world get?
Until Black Widow died.
It got so bad that baseball died. Like, that was... Oh, God. But then you, like, pan to Cap, and Cap is, like, in this, like... He's like in... Yeah, he's in a support group that are all stuck around. And you're just like, oh, my God. So all they've been doing is, like, being normies for 5 years and talking about, like, how sad they are. That's all they've been doing? Like, what? Like, that was pathetic. Yeah. And then you switch to her, you go to her, and she's like making a peanut butter and jelly. No, a peanut butter sandwich. Not even peanut butter and jelly. Did they run out of jelly? Like, I'm all, did they run out of jelly? These are the things that are going on in my head.
When
no baseball.
The universe, they snapped half of a peanut butter and jelly.
They snapped the jelly out. I know. You only get peanut butter sandwiches now.
The thing that I thought was really amazing, though, is that she obviously took over the role as the leader of the situation.
Because she is naturally the mom. That's the one thing she didn't get to be, was a mom.
Exactly. Well, that's the one thing I like that they didn't really explore. She's just kind of always been like,
how did you not see that, though?
Well, okay, in
they talked about that before.
A lot of the imagery, they have her standing beside or behind Captain America.
So here's,
instead of it front and center as the leader.
But she's always been the one that has never had, like, a sexual relationship with any of them, kind of thing. Right. She's never had a romantic attachment to any of them. Bruce. She's always been, well, Banner. Except for Banner, right?
And then she has, like, some kind of, like, flirty
codependent thing going on.
No, she has some kind of flirty banter with Steve at the beginning of Winter Soldier.
Maybe. Yeah. But she's kind of just that person, but they never take her as... Like, I wonder, you know, if they always kind of wanted to allude to maybe she might go out with one of them. But I was like, no, she wouldn't go out with any of them. She's, like, the chick. She's the chick of the team, and she's not going to be...
one of the guys.
Yeah, she's one of the guys. She wouldn't sleep with any of them. You know, she loved Banner, and we have had discussions about this, too. But anyway, okay. So that was, like, it was depressing, it was sad, but I felt like... And again, spoiler, we've already spoiled a shit ton by now, so if you haven't turned it on. So and then, you know, the way she died was so, it wasn't so obvious, but it was so amazing. It was so momentous. It was so, I couldn't stop crying. I could see, like, as soon as they sent them away, and then Ryan, who's sitting next to us, who's not here right now, who's going to be talking to me later.
When they went to get the Soul Stone?
When he was like, oh shit, one of the two of them is going to die. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
The Soul Stone.
But because I totally forgot. And I was like, still like trying to figure out why baseball was dead. Just kidding. But there were other things that had gone on because this movie was just going. Yeah. So we're only going right now at this point with Black Widow. So we're far into the thing, but this movie was just so jam packed that by the time they went to go get the Soul Stone, like, it took me a second to remember. Oh my God, that's right. One of them is gonna have to give up the other one in order for, and that was where I was crying because it was like that battle to save each other. Mm-hmm. Rather than sacrifice each other.
And I love that so much. Like, Clint and Natasha's relationship is something that they just kind of talk about. They just kind of joke about. But it's something that I wish we saw a lot more of on the screen. Especially, like, just going back to their history as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Like, I always love that kind of stuff. And, like, I wish we got more of that. But it's just kind of, like, the fact that they together went to the Soul Stone and knew for a fact that if one of them died, they would be giving up something that they loved so much. Mm-hmm. Like, that
and the
was
thing
such
is,
symbolism for their relationship.
Right,
I love
exactly.
That.
So that was the thing, right? Is like the two of them ended up going for the Soul Stone. And so it's like, if you think about predetermined and all this stuff, like, the two of them went because... And then you realize then on the ledge how strong their friendship was and how much they loved each other. Yeah. And I could think it could be said about any one of the six, right? Like, if it would have been like any two of the six together, they probably would have had that same thing. But the fact that it was the two of them.
Who had, like, the deepest history with each other out of any of the six of them, especially.
And as a mom, it's like he was the one with the kids who at the beginning of the movie, you know, you see him, you know, when everybody's disappearing and he loses his entire family and he gets them back. But she doesn't have that family. And so it makes more sense that she be the one that sacrifices herself because he has all the family.
Right.
But Clint has, like, done some really bad things in those 5 years. Like, he's turned into a real...
That, like, Natasha's more of a fan favorite than Clint.
Right, right.
So it's kind of... It makes more sense, like, on one hand, that they would have her die anyway because it would be more emotional for the fans.
It was totally dramatic.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I liked Clint's hair. All right, let's go back to... All right, let me see. Okay, so then talking about... What was the other thing that you talked about that you didn't like?
Oh my gosh, Steve and Bucky.
Okay, Steve and Bucky.
So...
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, obviously, Steve has had to watch his best friend die twice, right in front of his eyes when he couldn't do anything about it. And that's been one of the biggest things throughout his entire character development was just his relationship with Bucky through Winter Soldier and Civil War and everything going on. But the fact that what happened? I'm trying to... You lost me.
Sorry. So he
the fact that when he got Bucky back after they like reversed the snap or did whatever they had to do to bring everybody back, and there was little to no reconnection between the two of them, it was kind of like
Bucky's here.
As a fan of like Captain America movies specifically, and as I know a lot of people are when they're with their friendship dynamic and everything like that, it's kind of disappointing to the fans who were awaiting that moment where they like got each other back once again, where it could have been like for good or whatever would have happened.
And then it was just like, hey, Bucky's here.
It was just kind of like they had one hug, they had like 5 seconds of screen time together,
and that was it.
And in the anyway, Sebastian Stan did not get much screen time with that, and that was a little frustrating.
I would have totally liked, I was kind of bummed that he like left the scene right away too, but then you see like everybody else, but then again, going back to like how fast and how jam-packed the movie was, then you got another person that you hadn't seen in a while, and another person, and another person. Yeah. So like if you had seen all the movies and had like connected with all the different characters in all the movies, you were just like, yeah, it would have been cool to see more of Bucky, but oh my god, so-and-so's here now. Right. You know, he's back, and he's back, and she's back, and whatever, and it was just like, oh my god, what are they going to do with this character now that they're back? And then you're playing with timelines too, so you're also going back in time to before Thanos even showed up to the planet,
right?
You know, so then all of a sudden, what's it called, his daughters from the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Nebula and Gamora.
Nebula and Gamora there, and you're like, wait a minute, that's before the movie, before Guardians of the Galaxy comes in.
Yeah,
so
it's like right at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and so
or
you're
right at the beginning of what would be Guardians of the Galaxy.
So I felt like half my mind was working on the timeline the whole time.
Really?
Because we were going back and forth all the time. We're like, okay, we gotta go back here. And then they're like, we have one shot to do this one thing, but then they get there and it still gets screwed up. They're like, wait a minute, isn't this happening? So then you gotta go back to another place.
The thing I liked though was that it like was visually kind of obvious where they were in each timeline.
It's almost like the coloring changed.
Yeah. Like when they was Nebula and Gamora, it was all like dark and like purple and blue. Exactly. And then when it was back to like 2012 Avengers, it was like that bright, like whatever was going on there.
Blue sky,
like,
white clouds.
Like that.
And they also used a lot of musical cues to show where everybody was too, so that kind of helped too.
Yeah.
So there was
the Captain America theme song,
right?
And all kinds of stuff. It was awesome.
Oh my god! So speaking of, you just said Captain America theme song, which made me think of Thor theme song, which made me think of Thor, and oh my god! I couldn't.
I cannot believe after Ragnarok they just gave us 3 hours of fat Thor.
I was just like, and then what did I say? I'm like, oh my god, he looks like the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, and 2 seconds later.
2 seconds later, then Banner. Wasn't it Banner or Stark?
It was Stark.
One of them goes, what's up, Lebowski?
It was definitely Stark.
Yeah, but he looked horrible. And then every time they showed him in his full gut, I was like, no.
And I think everybody was waiting for him to magically go back to Hot Thor.
Like, yeah.
And he just didn't.
It was disgusting. Like, I couldn't keep looking at him. But then I kept thinking, well, I mean, dad bod, what are you going to do?
No. That's worse.
It was way worse than dad bod. It was definitely, I've given up on life bod.
Oh, speaking of dad, can we talk about, like, oh my gosh. Paul Rudd, Scott Lang.
Yes.
That's his daughter.
Yes.
That was
really sweet. And she's all grown up. They were all crying and everything. Gosh. That was really sweet.
And that just kind of like the fact that we've seen her as like a little girl and then she's like this big looking teenager. It was just kind of like, it was another like reminder of like how much time
has passed.
Life they all missed out on.
Right. Weird. Yeah, and speaking of life missing out on, let's not talk about the end.
Oh,
okay.
Because
but
I'll get really mad.
Okay,
I'll go off.
So at this point, whoever's listening to this has already watched it.
Yeah.
But so if you've already watched it, then you know how Cap comes back and he's like this old man and he's got his wedding ring on and he doesn't say anything, but then you get the flashback to where he's dancing in the house with Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
What did I say?
He's gonna go back to Peggy. And okay,
and what did you say?
I said that would be lazy writing. I feel very strongly about the fact that I love Peggy Carter, and every time I watch the first Avenger over again, I just get really upset over the fact that Peggy Carter and Steve Rogers never got the life together that they deserve. And I feel very strongly about the fact that they both deserve each other because they're both amazing. They both deserve the world, and they deserve each other.
That's why I knew that was going to happen.
I feel like, they deserved a happy, peaceful life together. But the fact that Steve went back in time, and he's going to have to... He obviously lived through everything else that happened, so he had to live through the stuff that was happening with, like, Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. and Peggy being the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Obviously, like, how is he...
I don't know.
His character...
I don't know.
It's literally said that he can't back down from a fight when he sees injustice going on, so I don't understand.
So maybe there's a split universe. I don't know.
No, but I don't understand how they're going to justify the fact that he went back in time to go deal with all the crap that he's had to like fight against and not do anything to screw up the future timelines. I
know. That is a little confusing.
So,
and somebody's going to have to explain that.
They're going to have to explain their way out of that.
However,
they did not think it through.
They get to have a life together.
Right, but at what he's like,
I know, you're thinking of it from like just a complete like purist perspective, and I'm thinking of it as a...
Also, he has to live the rest of his life without Bucky, and then Bucky has to live the rest of his life without Steve, and what the heck, they lost each other so many times, and they didn't... Oh my god. I just get so mad about this.
I don't know. All I know is that Peggy and Steve are together, and in some way, in some realm, in some part of the universe, they were happy. Well, and maybe they kicked ass together. Whatever. Maybe they actually
that's what I want to see. I want to see just a whole 4-hour movie of Steve and Peggy kicking the world's ass.
Because at this point we were only seeing them in a pasture next to some water, right? Mm-hmm. We're not seeing like what happened to the rest of the world. Right. We're only seeing the end result, which is him showing up. So if you were to like go back out into the greater expanse of the world, maybe it was different. Maybe it did turn out differently.
Maybe. I don't know.
So, and then we don't know what's next because when the end of the movie was, and then we watched all the credits, and probably the same people listening, same thing happened with the people listening to this recording. We all just sat there
like idiots.
Like idiots to find out that there was nothing.
There was no end credit scene.
No scenes. No scenes, yep. No teasers. No, this is what's next. This is what you can look forward to.
Like,
none of that.
They have movies planned, but I don't think they like... I don't know why they're not telling us what's planned next for Avengers, I guess.
Okay. So let's talk about the girl power. There was one scene,
gosh, yes.
Holy shit. So there was like the whole thing where Captain Marvel comes in and she just like basically just kicks some butt. She just demolished people.
On that, there was this one scene where she's holding the gauntlet from Thanos. And she's not even struggling at all.
It's not even bothering her.
It's such a nice parallel. Like, I love Steve, and, like, it was just such a cool parallel to, like, Cap doing the exact same thing, but struggling so hard, like, fighting for his life to hold up the gauntlet.
Boom.
And she's just like, this is fine. This is easy.
Yeah. But the cool... and then she, like, totally destroys that one, the largest ship. She just, like,
She just flies straight
through it 3 times. Yep. Just like a big zigzag. And they're like, okay, well, I took care of that. All right, next. But there's one scene where all the fierce women of Marvel are all coming up one at a time alongside each other. Except for Black Widow. Shut up. But they're all coming together, right? On the field, on the battlefield. And like, there's 3 of them, and then there's 4 of them, and then 5, and 6. And I was like sitting there, and I was like screaming in my head. And I'm like, I want this poster.
Yeah.
I want
you heard
this
screaming
scene.
In your head. You said that out loud.
Did I say it out loud?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want this poster hanging in my room so bad right now. I thought that was amazing. And I loved how there wasn't even a question. it was more like the question was, hey, new person. It wasn't, they called her new girl, but it was more that she was a new person. But there wasn't really a question of that, you know, the women. And this is what I love about Marvel is the women are just, they're dominant. There's not like a chick can't do this. It's just like, okay, this is her role. We're going to let her do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I dug. But that one particular scene on the battlefield, that was
awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So any last thoughts about it?
Let me see.
I felt like, so one of the things that I said as we walked out, I said, I felt like Avenger fans got avenged. But after listening to you, I feel like you have more questions and more concerns.
At first, when I walked out of the theater, I was like, I feel good about this. But after thinking more about it and seeing more of people's responses, I'm like, there's still so much more that I want. But it's obvious there was no more room for anything to be added.
It was 3 hours. We had to buy 2 large popcorns.
It was 3 hours long, and they didn't waste a single second of it.
It was all jam-packed.
Like, if anything, they could have gone 4 hours, and I'd be even more, like...
I think we could have all sat there another hour. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I just feel like... I thought it was great, like, the humor and stuff like that they added to the characters. Like, especially Captain America, they've had his character as such a stoic, like, calm, serious, like, they have a little bit of humor with him in Age of Ultron, but that's just kind of all of Age of Ultron. It's just a lot of humor with each of the characters. But they really did add to each character with, I don't know, the humor stuck out to me most because the last couple of movies have been so serious.
Hard, yeah.
Like Civil War, that one's just gut-wrenching the entire time. And so it was kind of nice to have, especially, like, the comedic relief. Like,
speaking of Civil War and then coming back this time, it was so great to see Spidey come back.
Oh, yeah.
That was, like, it was such a tender moment. And then when he and Tony hugged.
Yeah.
And he's always, like, trying to get Tony's affection. And then Tony was just so happy to see him. That was just super sweet. There were a lot of tender moments like that. Like, just mother-son and father-daughter and, like... Tony and the kid, and you know, I always love that he calls him the kid, and there were a lot of like tender family moments that I was just like, as soon as the movie started, my eyes were just dripping.
I know, everybody was like, did you cry? I'm like, I didn't, but my mom was crying within the first couple of seconds.
The whole time I was dying.
Movie.
The entire time.
You know, it was just like looking over and you were sniffling and wiping.
I know. I heard somebody say, did you shush her? And I was like, were they talking about me? Did they have to shush me? Like, I really had to go back and find out and make sure it wasn't me. Because I felt, and I was like, my sweater, because I totally didn't think to bring tissue. So I was dripping. I was like wiping my face with my sweater. My sweater was nice and moist. All right, so cool. So thank you for your feedback. That was now I get to talk to your brother.
Okay, have fun with that.
Bye-bye.
Y'all even more than I did.
I know. All right, so we went to see Avengers Endgame earlier this week, and we've been really good about not giving any spoilers, but this is basically going to be an entire conversation of spoilers. So I've already let everybody know. I've already let your sister know. She's already given some spoilers away. I've already tripped up on some spoilers, whatever. So this is an absolute spoiler conversation. So now I'm talking to you. I'm talking to my son, Ryan. Ryan is actually, he's the one that recruited Hannah and I into the world into the cult of Marvel. Let's just call it what it is. And we are now complete devotees, and Ryan is our priest. So Ryan, as the person that's been watching this since you were basically ejected from my womb, what were your thoughts? Like, as soon as we watched it, I remember hearing you in the theater going, ah! Like, I heard you screaming, and then I heard you going, oh my God. Oh, you know, and I heard all your utterances, and then we left, and we were all, like, super excited, but I haven't necessarily heard your download take, because I think we were all just processing for a whole day.
I think that there were a lot of callbacks to every single other thing that had ever happened. And especially with time travel, they really, anything previously mentioned probably came up. And I think possibly one of my favorite things was just the entire section where they went back in time to New York. Mm-hmm. Because so many things really did happen all at once there. And seeing them all go back and talk about New York in that time and the world at that time was kind of interesting, because there's this one scene where they're talking about when to go back and when to find this time stones, because find the Infinity Stones, and then they're trying to be as efficient as possible. Then they realize the time stone is also in New York alongside the Tesseract.
Let's stop and remember, who was it that realized it?
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Okay, all right.
Because
she's the most awesome person.
She stepped into the leadership role of this movie, and I like that because she's had no personality for the entire...
Again, I disagree strongly.
Okay, so apparently you think she has no personality.
No, I think she's amazing. But anyway, okay, so they all figured that out. But you're right, all the callbacks. And it was funny because I felt like it was like a family reunion of memories and people and scenes, even scenes too, right?
Yeah, and it was... the reason I liked New York so much was because at the end of Avengers 1, Loki you see all the Avengers standing over him, and you don't really know how that, like, what comes after that until, like, the scene where, like, until hours or maybe a day later, but you get to see, like, the moments right after that, and it's pretty cool to see those, like, early on character interactions that, like, you don't really get to see because next time you see all the Avengers together is Age of Ultron, and that's different. You
right.
But this is more, like, fresh, barely know each other, still kind of snippy, like...
Yeah, like, still trying to figure each other out, sniffing each other out. I also liked, like, when all the Guardians of the Galaxy came back in, and it was almost at the right time because it was starting to get... it was really, really serious. A lot of serious stuff had happened, and all of a sudden Guardians of the Galaxy, characters start popping up, and then it kind of added some levity. What did you think about all of them coming back?
I thought it was pretty cool, and what I especially love is Gamora coming back, and the fact that she's still good. She's still a good person. Her motivations are the same. It's just she hasn't met the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
She's old Gamora, and so we're basically gonna have a whole, like, what's basically a memory wipe. And I think with everyone else being her family, and she's now the Nebula of the Guardians of the Galaxy, basically. We get to see her in that position, and I don't know. It's gonna be...
I love when she, like, when Nebula is pointing out that, Chris Pratt's
Quill.
the guy. The Quill's the guy, and she goes,
like, "This is him."
This is him. She's like, I don't see it either.
Yeah, it was a call out that we all very much appreciated, especially after Infinity War when he screwed everything up.
And then Groot shows up.
Yeah,
everybody shows up.
That final scene where everyone just kind of comes together, like, at the end with, like, Thanos' army, like, charging forth.
But the best part, though, so you've got Thanos' army, and you're just like, you have nobody on the other side. What the hell's going to happen? And all of a sudden, Doctor Strange's circles, like, all of a sudden the glitter just starts showing everywhere, and you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then everybody from all the Marvel universe and everything just starts pouring through these time holes.
Yeah, I think, like, the coolest part was seeing, like, you got to see the, and this is, like, with back in New York again, because that's my favorite scene. The Ancient One was fighting off the Chitauri.
Yes.
And, because everyone's been asking, like, if you were protecting the Earth, where the hell were you when the aliens showed up?
Right, and what did she say? And everybody saw this. She's like, maybe I was wrong. So seeing her say that and seeing that realization come over her face, that was just really crazy because she really was kind of arrogant in the whole thing until the end when it was her time to leave, the universe as well. But it was like she just thought that she just wasn't wrong, that she knew everything. And at that moment, she realized, oh my gosh.
She realized her, like, isolationist ways of keeping the Masters of the Mystic Arts out of other, like, things. She realized that was wrong, and I really liked that because that shows that, like, she believed that Strange was right, and that realization, like, she always knew that he was going to be right. Like, so obviously there was some kind of prophecy, or maybe she saw with the Time Stone, but she knew that he was going to be the one who was going to fix everything and, like, make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
And so her hearing that that's his decision, she's like, I guess he was right.
I know, but that realization that came over her face was really amazing.
Invented acting. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I think it was really cool. Like, actually, it just, like, warmed your face. Like, you could see almost, like, the pit in her stomach, just, like, going, oh, my God, maybe I was wrong this whole time.
Yeah. And then, so, with that and with the fact that Doctor Strange is more of a Masters of Mystic's art should be, like, out there helping with everything that harms the planet, including Thanos. And then you get the Wakandan army and the...
Oh, my God, that was so great.
You get the Wakandan army and the Wizards both showing up, like, those two armies, and then like a bunch of other, like, Avengers just showing up, and I think you get some Asgardians in there too with, like, Valkyrie. She pulls them, like,
All right, so
through.
that was my question too, right? Is like when they finally leave at the end of Ragnarok, right? And they leave, and then they go up into space, and they're a big ship, and then freaking Thor, what's his name? Thanos just shows up and just like destroys them. I'm like, what the hell? They just escaped.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so wrong. And so he just like basically decimates most of them, and then there's like a little chunk of them that leave, and they're the ones that are left.
And then they get snapped.
And so they end up in this like little tiny Norwegian village, and then that's where the Big Lebowski is living, drinking beer. That was so... Okay, so as a Thor fan, how did you feel about seeing him in all his fatness?
I was looking forward to some good Thor this movie, and I got none of that.
I know. It was like all Okay.
It's, in one part, traumatic. I didn't appreciate that at all. And, sweet Christ, I was just waiting for the part where, like, he became hot again.
Right!
It never came. It never happened.
And Hannah said the same thing. She's like, we were all waiting for like when that big bolt of lightning came and his hair got fixed and he like all of a sudden had like those really cool braids. And then I'm looking down, I'm like, but he's still not Thor.
Yeah. Like I predicted he would have that haircut because that's the King Thor haircut. Like that's the haircut he gets like after everything happens and everything goes horribly wrong. So I figured he would have that haircut.
But how did you feel about him?
I just figured that everything neck down would be much better too.
Right, me too.
Unfortunately.
So like what did you think about him questioning himself though and being like so down on himself?
Like he's had this vision of how his life was supposed to go since he was born.
Like all of us.
And his whole arc is realizing that it's not going to be like that. And every movie he's in, it's more of, it's not going to be like that. Mm-hmm. Like either he realizes that his father was a horrible person or that his brother was a horrible person that just faked his death again. And so it's more of just like things are not going great and he doesn't want to be king. So the surprise, like the end where he gives Valkyrie the title of like, Lord of the Asgardians, like that's
pretty rad.
Not surprising to me at all because like his whole character thing is like
I thought it was really sweet that he got to see his mom again. Like that part actually made me cry, you know, because he was just like so happy and he was trying so hard to tell her, and she realized he was trying to tell her something so that he would be safe, and then and she was just like no, this, you know, things are gonna be the way they're gonna be. And it was just really, really touching. That was one of the moments that I cried. Well, there were a few moments that I cried. I cried when you were the one that, because I was like so traumatized about what was going on with the rest of the movie that it didn't dawn on me until you said it out loud. When they went to go get the Soul Stone, when Clint and Black Widow went to go get the Soul Stone, what was going to happen?
Like I just saw, like I knew they were the ones going to Vormir, and I'm like, oh shit.
But you said they're going to Vormir. They're going to Vormir. I'm like, what? What?
I'm like, one of them is going to die.
It took me it seriously took me too long. But then once I saw the scene, I was like, oh my god, no. And I knew exactly, and that was the one person that I said, as long as Black Widow doesn't die.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. But my thing is that, like, she doesn't, like, her story as the one who sacrifices herself to get the Soul Stone, that completes her story.
It completes her story.
That absolutely finishes her entire character arc.
For sure.
And Hawkeye still has more room to go. Like, he has to be the one who, like, he doesn't mentor, I forget her name.
But he also kind of has to make up for a lot of the crap that he's been doing for the 5 years that everybody has been disappeared or whatever.
Yeah, you have the other Hawkeye, Kate. I forget her last name. One of my favorite superheroes, but she's the other Hawkeye, and she's like takes on the mantle of Hawkeye while Hawkeye's dead in the comics. It's a long story. Scarlet Witch kills him. It was messy. And so she takes on the mantle of Hawkeye, and then he gets revived, and then he's like, we should be partners, like co-Hawkeyes. And so that whole story, that dynamic, it's one that like everyone's looking forward to. So I knew that he couldn't die. I'm like, I knew that it couldn't be him.
So speaking of, like, I feel like Hannah
Kate Bishop, that's it.
Kate Bishop, okay.
Got it.
So Hannah and I have really been watching the movies. We haven't really been getting into like all the comics and all the backstories and everything else that in between the movies. And you have. So you kind of like had a deeper understanding. So from that perspective, how did you feel about like how it all kind of was happening all at once, where the timeline was just being kind of mushed around and everything?
I completely loved the time travel being thrown to the wall. I love how they said that anything can happen in the past, and as long as you don't pull out an Infinity Stone, the entire timeline will stay the same. Because I thought that allows so much room for, like, movement and, like, room for things going crazy, and still none at all.
Right. But I'm still, as happy as I am that Cap and Peggy have their time and everything else, it still kind of feels like, wouldn't that have been then 2 parallel universes? Like 2 parallel timelines?
It would, and it would until the moment when he time travels, and then it reconverges back together.
Yeah.
It becomes one timeline again.
Yeah. So Hannah did say, she was like, I just need 4 hours of just the Peggy and Steve story. So that might be kind of cool. Who knows?
I would appreciate that.
I would too. I would love that. That would be really, really awesome.
We just need more Peggy Carter in our lives.
They even had, oh my gosh, or when Howard Stark shows up.
Yeah, and then they had the Jarvis from the
Jarvis
Agent
from the
Carter.
show. Right. They had Jarvis from the show. Agent Carter shows up, and he's like actual Howard Stark's Jarvis. And then you've got Tony there, and he doesn't. And what was funny is, and this you guys don't understand because I grew up in the 70s, but people with beards were really suspect back at the time.
Yeah, I got that.
And so they kept like alluding to the beard, and you guys were like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, beards in the 70s meant you were like some kind of like terrorist, essentially."
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool when he hugged, and they were talking about having kids because Howard Stark hadn't yet had Tony. And he was like, this kid's not even born yet, and I would do anything for him. And that was the thing that Tony needed to hear. And you were like, well, you should have showed it to him in his life.
He should have. I'm sorry.
Right.
Howard Stark wants to come through, like, beforehand and then, like, be like, yeah, I'll do anything for this kid. And then, like, abandon him, like, basically throughout the entire life.
But that was kind of what I loved about the whole movie, too, though. It, like, tied together, loose ends of relationships that really needed, like, some kind of mending or some kind of closure. And I felt like Tony and Howard had that closure in that moment, like they bonded in like those few little moments of like going from one floor to the other and out to the car.
Yeah. And I do think that like it shows not only humanizes Howard, who's been painted as this son of a bitch the entire throughout the entire MCU for all this time, but it also what it does is it shows the difference between Howard and Tony, and that, like, while Howard may say that he'd do anything, it also pushes Tony to go on and actually do what he has to do to save his daughter. So I've always had this conflict of, like, because I wasn't, like, a huge Tony Stark fan the whole time. I think he's arrogant. I think he, the whole, like, peace in our time whole thing with Age of Ultron and everything, I kind of agreed. Tony did screw the pooch there, and you think I'm wrong. I know, I get it. But I felt like at that moment when Howard Stark had said something, I forget what the exact line was, but I felt like maybe Tony was like, you know what, there's more to life than just like trying to get what you want at all costs kind of thing. I forget what the line was. I don't know, but what he wanted was to make sure no one died, and he said that like after he got back from space and Captain Marvel rescued him, which is exactly what I needed.
Oh my god, yes.
He yelled at like Steve and was like, you want to come here right now in my house and tell me like I was wrong about Ultron, because if Ultron happened, none of Thanos' plan would have come true. He would have been shot out of the sky.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
But it would have...
Because look what happened.
Doctor Strange wouldn't have been kidnapped, and then Thanos would have had to come to Earth, except this time all the Avengers would have more time to prepare.
Maybe.
They wouldn't be separated, and everything would go great. But that's just conjecture.
But then James Spader was all like Mr. Bad Guy and computerized bad guy or whatever.
I'm like one of the 5 people on this planet that thinks Ultron was like a good villain and like a good movie.
Nope. You're right. Only 5 people. So let's get back to Captain Marvel really quickly. You were the one that was like, she just decimated this ship in one shot.
She as soon as all the guns of this ship stopped firing on the planet and just like turned up and like faced something, I'm like, who could it be? And my thought was Captain Marvel. That was one of the first ones. But I'm like, why would all the guns face her? And I'm like, because she's fucking Captain Marvel. That's why. And then they started firing on one person, and it was her. And then she just like rammed through his ship and tore it to pieces. The biggest, most powerful ship
I know.
in the MCU.
And she just like went through it like a needle.
She did not care. And she was completely unbothered by anything. And I do think it was pretty cool to see like Thanos like go toe to toe with her, and like. It was so cool to see Thanos going up against any of the Avengers one-on-one, because they all did kind of trade off. Like he would knock everyone out, and then one person would get back up and try fighting him. But like Captain Marvel like was the one who almost got the Infinity Gauntlet back in time, but she did.
So here's the other part. It's a question I had, and we were all just like freaking out and screaming when Captain America picked up the hammer.
Oh shit! That's
schnuggies.
It's just like we all had kind of been thinking it.
Because it kind of moved a little smidge.
It did move a little bit in Age of Ultron, and we're all just like, he probably just didn't want to pick it up. He didn't need that pressure. And so, like, when he picked it up and, like, because when he as soon as Mjolnir did something, I can't remember what it did, like, it just hit Thanos, and I'm just like, that wasn't Thor. I went to catatonic shock, basically. And I knew it was Steve Rogers, and it was, and
then you saw Thor, and he was like, I knew it.
Yeah,
so
we all
cool.
knew. He was us.
Yeah,
we all knew it.
So I know, and that was like basically like there were half of the people in the theater were just like, oh my god, and then the other half were just like, same thing. I knew it, but it was I was just like kind of confused a little bit, but it was actually just the person that was worthy. I was like, is he immortal? Is there some immortality to him? It's not the immortality; it's the worthiness of it.
Yeah, anyone that like. There's like a specific set of rules, I think, that you have to like be able to wield it, and like I think Spider-Man's one of the only people that like almost can but can't, and Captain America can apparently. I think it's like you have to be a good-hearted, like holy, godly man, but you also have to be willing to kill someone. Like those are two requirements. And Spider-Man can't kill anybody. He doesn't really want to, except for that time when he started murking a bunch of aliens like out of nowhere. That was hilarious. I really appreciated him killing aliens.
Speaking of Spider-Man, so when Kid came back, when that whole thing, so Tony Stark has spent like all the other movies like pushing Spidey away and everything else, and I love how it's still consistent every time he's in any movie. He's like, Peter Parker. It's me, Peter Parker. Like he has to say his name over and over again.
I really hope we get like more Captain Marvel and Peter Parker interaction, because that one like those 5 seconds were perfect, and we need more of that. But I really thought that like we all were absolutely ready for the for Tony and Peter to reunite and like, for it to be perfect.
And it was so sweet though. Like Tony, like I said, he like every movie, right? He's been pushing him away, but that movie he was just like so happy to see him, and he was just like tears in his eyes and just hugged him and everything else. And that's the one thing that everybody's like, before the movie started, people were like, oh well, I know Spider-Man comes back because they're doing all these other movies or whatever. But yeah, so the very, very end, I knew, like, it was obvious when, at the end of Infinity War, when Doctor Strange gave himself and, traded places with Tony, that Tony was going to be the reason, the way that everybody wins. And it was like the 1 in 14 million or whatever the odds were. And that realization on his face, and then when all the stones ended up in Tony's hand, Tony's glove, that was just phenomenal.
Like, as soon as Tony made his own Infinity Gauntlet, I knew that Tony was gonna wield all the Infinity Stones at once, because I knew that like he would trade it off. That whole interaction with Thanos, I knew was gonna happen. I was just waiting for it and scared for when it came.
But it was still shocking.
It was still shocking.
You knew it was gonna happen. I was just like, what? How is this gonna? What are they gonna do? How is he gonna pull this glove off of him? And I didn't realize. It didn't even dawn on me until you explained. Like how, because it's made of the same stuff, so he was able to just like pull it over onto his glove.
Yeah.
Essentially. And then his glove looked so much more. It was just a lot cooler looking. And then when he did that snap, I was like, oh my God. And for an instant, though, I thought, what is Tony going to wish for? Oh, no. Because I'm still thinking Tony still is maybe thinking, I'm just going to do things my way, not necessarily the best way. But he really had, like, everybody's best. Like, he had a major character evolution. Yeah. He had a kid. He got married. He had the whole, like, home life. He didn't want to lose that again. He loved what he had gained. When he said that he loved what he had gained, I think what he meant was he loved what he gained personally, like emotionally, like what he understood about life at that point.
Yeah. And in the comics, he's one of the very few human beings, and I'm pretty sure he's one of the only like non-enhanced human beings to ever wield the Infinity Gauntlet. And when he does that, he has this, like, not really a monologue, but a short little thing where he's like, I could wish for anything in the world. I could fix all the problems, but that prevents us from being human. That prevents us from, like, doing our best, kind of. And, like, so he does two things. One, I think he, like, revives a couple people that were killed, and then two, he, like, beats whoever he was monologuing against. I'm pretty sure it was Thanos.
But in the movie, we're talking about the movie.
Yeah, and so I think that it really, they got his character spot on in that, in the fact that, like, he may seem arrogant, but at his heart, he, like, wants what's best for everyone, and he especially knows when to put aside what he wants for what everyone needs.
Yeah.
And
that was big character growth. All right, so cool, very cool. Thank you for your conversation. Thanks for sucking me in to the Marvel universe. It has been a trip.
No problem.